They just dance all over the place when they get a plunger.
They go crazy over ramen noodles. They love them.
We came to this parade 2 years ago to talk about the then upcoming 2024 election. Lots of people told us they were excited for Donald Trump to come back to the White House, to lower prices and fix the economy.
We're ready for Trump to get back in. Can't wait.
This time, people's support for Trump was more muted.
To me, the tariffs that Trump started, I think, is a joke. The American people are paying for it.
Right.
And that's what I don't like.
Now, he pledged to lower prices. Do you think he's been able to pull that off?
No.
Do you think he should have promised it?
Well, he's a politician. So, I mean, politicians promise the world when they want to get elected.
Well, do you support him, President Trump?
Yes, I support him. I'm not happy with him all the time. I think it's a joke about creating the big ballroom up there and wanting to inlay it with all the gold fixtures.
I'm not the biggest fan, but at least it's not Biden. That's my opinion. I was just hoping for a little bit more personally, especially with like all the stuff happening with the Epstein, files and all that. That's got me really nervous as well.
You want more of the Epstein files to come out?
Absolutely, yes. I really want it to come out. I mean, if he was there, I feel like we deserve to know that, especially if we don't want him in there. I mean, what Epstein did was horrible. That's really bad.
How long are you willing to give him to get the prices down?
Until his end of term?
Yeah.
I'm willing to stand behind him if he just keeps bringing it down.
What do you think of the tariffs?
Oh, now those we can do without.
Okay.
Those we can do without, Trump, baby. We can do without those.
So Trump's been in office about a year. How do you think he's done so far?
I think it's still too early to tell. I was watching the news last night down in New Orleans where the border control was active, and some of the things I was not comfortable with at all.
So it's more what you think about deportations.
I know there has to be a limit sometimes, and they fight hard for the border control because of the drug issue and things like that. But then I see some people that just seem so innocent. There was one particular girl who was born and raised here, and they chased her down the street into her house. That really upset me. There's citizens here that are being chased, and with the last name of Del Rio,
Yeah.
What's up, everyone? We need to talk about what just happened at a Republican Christmas party in Louisiana because Donald Trump just got a brutal reality check from his own supporters, and the clips coming out of this event are absolutely devastating for his narrative that everything is going great. But before we get to that humiliating footage, we need to discuss the massive economic disaster that Trump's tariff policy has become, because China just posted a $1 trillion trade surplus for the first time ever, completely destroying Trump's claim that his tariffs would bring China to its knees. Let me start with the economic catastrophe because this is genuinely shocking, and it proves that Trump is either a complete idiot when it comes to trade policy, or he's actually helping China more than he's helping America. And honestly, I think we all know which one it is. Trump's tariffs on Chinese goods average almost 50%, the highest in modern history. The entire premise of this policy was that making Chinese goods too expensive for Americans would somehow force manufacturing back to the United States, and China would lose its biggest customer and collapse economically. By the way, I am trying to do my best to gather all the information I can for you and share it with you. Please leave your likes and comments, and I would be grateful if you subscribed. Let's continue. And you know what? Part of that actually worked. Shipments from China to the US dropped 29% in November. That's a massive decline. American imports from China plummeted because the tariffs made Chinese products prohibitively expensive. So Trump should be celebrating, right? His policy achieved its stated goal of reducing Chinese exports to America. Except there's one tiny problem that apparently Trump and his economic advisors never considered. The world has other customers besides the United States. China knows how to play the global trade game way better than Trump does. While exports to the US dropped 29%, China simply redirected to other markets. Exports to Europe dropped 14.8%, but that's much less than the US decline. Exports to Australia surged 35.8%. Southeast Asia was up 8.2%. China found new buyers, diversified its customer base, and ended up growing its overall exports by 5.9%, beating every forecast. Think about what that means. Trump's tariffs, which were specifically designed to shrink Chinese trade and hurt their economy, actually resulted in China's exports growing, not shrinking, growing. And China just posted a $1 trillion trade surplus for the first time in history. That's a record. Trump's signature trade policy, the thing he's been bragging about for years, the centerpiece of his economic nationalism, has resulted in China having its best trade performance ever. Meanwhile, who's paying for these tariffs? American consumers. That's how tariffs work. When the U.S. government puts a tax on imported goods, American companies and consumers pay that tax. So we're paying more for products, getting less selection because imports dropped, watching prices go up across the board, and China is posting record trade surpluses with the rest of the world. This is the opposite of winning. This is losing so badly that you're actually helping your adversary while hurting yourself. Trump either doesn't understand how global trade works, which makes him an idiot, or he does understand, and he's deliberately implementing policies that benefit China while hurting America, which would make him essentially a Chinese agent. And I think we can all figure out which explanation is more likely. Trump is just genuinely incompetent when it comes to economic policy. He has this simplistic, zero-sum understanding of trade where he thinks making it harder for Americans to buy Chinese goods will automatically bring manufacturing back. But that's not how any of this works. Manufacturing doesn't come back to the U.S. just because Chinese goods get more expensive. Companies look for the next cheapest option, which might be Vietnam or Mexico or India. Or they eat the tariff costs and pass them on to consumers, or they restructure their supply chains in ways that avoid the tariffs while still sourcing from China indirectly. The global economy is fluid and replaceable. Markets adapt, and China has been doing international trade for thousands of years. They know how to navigate these situations way better than Trump does. So American workers, the people Trump claimed he was helping with these tariffs, are paying more for goods and not seeing any manufacturing jobs return. American consumers are paying the tariff tax and getting worse selection. And China is diversifying away from depending on the U.S. market, which actually makes them stronger and more resilient in the long term. Great job, Trump. Really amazing policy work there. But Trump's economic failures are matched by his political decline, and that brings us to the Republican Christmas party footage that just came out. Before we get to that, I want to show you what Congressman Eric Swalwell said about Trump's declining political power, because this is important context for understanding what we're seeing on the ground. Swalwell was asked if his Republican colleagues share his frustration with Trump and what their reaction is to various Trump administration disasters, and his answer was revealing. He said Republicans tell him privately that what's happening is un-American, but they're being told by family members and loved ones not to speak out. One Republican told Swalwell at the gym, "Don't be the tallest poppy in the field, because if Donald Trump comes after you, you get death threats and your life completely changes." Swalwell's response was perfect. Get a different job. If you're too scared to do your job as a member of Congress because you might get death threats from the president's supporters, you shouldn't be in Congress. But Swalwell acknowledged that what Marjorie Taylor Greene has been saying is true, that death threats do come in when you oppose Trump. The difference is Swalwell is seeing more and more people becoming less scared of Donald Trump, particularly Republicans. And the evidence backs that up. In Indiana, they rejected Trump's redistricting play. A grand jury rejected the attempt to indict Letitia James again. Trump's physical decline is only matched by his political decline right now. He's losing power. His grip on the Republican Party is weakening, and that's showing up in real ways that matter. Which brings us to the Redneck Christmas Parade in Blankenville, Louisiana. This is an annual holiday toy drive and celebration of country culture. Apparently, people go crazy over getting plungers and ramen noodles as gifts, which tells you something about the economic situation in this community. This is rural, working-class, Republican Louisiana. This should be Trump country. These should be his most enthusiastic supporters. The reporters went to this same parade 2 years ago to talk about the then-upcoming 2024 election, and lots of people told them they were excited for Donald Trump to come back to the White House to lower prices and fix the economy. People were saying we're ready for Trump to get back. Can't wait. That was the mood 2 years ago. Excitement, anticipation, confidence that Trump would deliver. This time, people's support for Trump was more muted, way more muted, and the interviews are absolutely brutal. Let me walk you through what Trump's own supporters are saying about him now that he's been in office for about a year. First person interviewed said, "To me, the tariffs that Trump started, I think it's a joke. The American people are paying for it, right? And that's what I don't like." This is someone at a Republican Christmas party in rural Louisiana calling Trump's signature trade policy a joke and pointing out correctly that Americans are paying for the tariffs. When asked if Trump has been able to deliver on his pledge to lower prices, the response was simply no. Then the follow-up question, do you think he should have promised it? And the answer was perfect. Well, he's a politician, so I mean, politicians promise the world when they want to get elected. Even Trump's supporters are acknowledging he lied to them. He promised things he couldn't deliver. He made commitments he had no intention or ability to keep. And they're not even surprised because politicians always do that. Next person said they support Trump but aren't happy with him all the time. They think it's a joke that he's creating a big ballroom at the White House and wants to inlay it with gold fixtures. This is someone who voted for Trump saying his gaudy spending on White House renovations, while people struggle with prices, is ridiculous. Then they added, I'm not the biggest fan, but at least it's not Biden. That's the bar now. Not that Trump is good, just that he's not Biden. Then we get to the Epstein files, and this is where it gets really interesting. Someone said, I was just hoping for a little bit more personally, especially with all the stuff happening with the Epstein files and all that. That's got me really nervous as well. The interviewer asked if they want more of the Epstein files to come out, and the response was emphatic. Absolutely, yes. I really want it to come out. I mean, if he was there, I feel like we deserve to know that, especially if we don't want him in there. Think about what this Trump supporter is saying. They want the Epstein files released, even though they acknowledge Trump might be implicated. They're saying if Trump was involved in Epstein's activities, we deserve to know that, especially if it means we don't want him in office. This is a Republican voter in rural Louisiana at a Christmas parade saying they'd turn on Trump if the Epstein evidence shows he was involved. That's significant. That's not blind loyalty. That's conditional support that could evaporate if the truth comes out. The person continued, I mean, what Epstein did was horrible. That's really bad. This is someone who gets it. They understand the gravity of Epstein's crimes, and they want answers, even if those answers implicate the president they voted for. That's the kind of integrity we need more of. Another person was asked how long they're willing to give Trump to get prices down. Their answer, until the end of his term. But then when asked about the tariffs, they said, oh, now those we can do without. Those we can do without, baby. We can do without those. So they're willing to give Trump time, but they want him to drop the tariffs because they recognize the tariffs are making things worse, not better. Someone else said it's still too early to tell how Trump's done, but then immediately brought up something that made them very uncomfortable. They were watching news about border control being active in New Orleans, and some of the things they saw they were not comfortable with at all. When asked about deportations, they said there has to be a limit sometimes, that border control is important because of drugs, but then I see some people that just seem so innocent. They described watching a girl who was born and raised here being chased down the street into her house by immigration enforcement. That really upset me, they said. There's citizens here that are being chased, and with the last name Adel Rio, This is a Trump supporter in Louisiana saying they're disturbed by Trump's deportation tactics. They're seeing citizens with Hispanic-sounding last names being chased by immigration enforcement and recognizing that's wrong. These interviews are devastating for Trump's narrative. This is supposed to be his base. Rural, working class, Republican Louisiana, the kind of place that should be cheering everything Trump does. And instead, you're hearing measured criticism, frustration with broken promises, concerns about tariffs and prices, demands for Epstein transparency even if it hurts Trump, and discomfort with deportation tactics. Nobody in these interviews was enthusiastically defending Trump. Nobody was saying he's doing an amazing job and everything is perfect. The most positive thing anyone said was basically, I support him, but I'm not happy with him. At least he's not Biden. That's not a ringing endorsement. That's reluctant tolerance at best. And this matches what we're seeing in polling data. Trump's approval numbers are underwater. More people disapprove of his job performance than approve. His economic approval is particularly bad because people are living the reality that contradicts his claims. He said he'd lower prices. Prices haven't come down. He said tariffs would help American workers. Workers are paying more for goods and not seeing manufacturing jobs return. He said he'd make America great again. People are watching their purchasing power decline and wondering what's so great about this. The political decline Swalwell mentioned is real. Republicans in Congress are less scared of Trump than they were. They're willing to defy him on things like Indiana redistricting. Grand juries aren't rubber stamping his political prosecutions, and his own voters in places like Louisiana are expressing disappointment and frustration. This is what happens when you promise everything and deliver nothing. Trump ran on bringing prices down, bringing manufacturing back, making life better for working-class Americans. He's delivered higher prices through tariffs, no manufacturing renaissance, and policies that benefit China more than America. And eventually, people notice. Eventually, even loyal supporters start asking, where are the results you promised? The Epstein issue is particularly interesting because Trump weaponized it during the campaign. He claimed he'd release all the files. He accused his opponents of being involved. He positioned himself as the transparency candidate who would expose everyone. And now that he's president and has the power to actually release everything, he's obstructing. He's allowing redactions. He's dragging his feet. And his own supporters are noticing and demanding he follow through. That voter in Louisiana who said they want the files released, even if Trump is implicated, represents something important. Not everyone who voted for Trump is in a cult. Some people have principles that transcend partisan loyalty. Some people genuinely care about holding powerful people accountable for crimes against children, even if one of those powerful people is the president they supported. If Trump's support in rural Louisiana is this soft, if people at a Republican Christmas parade are openly criticizing his policies and demanding Epstein transparency, that suggests his political foundation is shakier than anyone realizes. These should be his most reliable voters. These should be the people cheering him unconditionally. Instead, they're expressing buyer's remorse and conditional support. The tariff failure combined with the disappointing reception at his own party's Christmas event paints a picture of an administration in trouble. Trump's signature economic policy is helping China set records while hurting American consumers. His political support is eroding, even in his base. His promises are being exposed as lies. And his obstruction on issues like the Epstein files is creating doubt even among people who voted for him. China's $1 trillion trade surplus is Trump's legacy. That's what his tariffs accomplished. Not bringing manufacturing back, not hurting China's economy, not helping American workers, just making things more expensive for Americans while China diversifies and grows stronger. And the voters in Louisiana are figuring that out. They're living with higher prices and understanding that Trump's policies caused them. This is the beginning of Trump's political collapse. Not the end. We're not there yet. But the signs are clear. His support is soft. His policies are failing. His promises are broken. And even in Republican strongholds, people are starting to acknowledge reality. How long until that soft support becomes opposition? How long until frustration becomes anger? How long until people decide they've given him enough time and he hasn't delivered? The person who said they'd give Trump until the end of his term to lower prices represents a ticking clock. That's not unconditional support. That's a deadline. If prices aren't down by the end of 4 years, that support evaporates. And given that Trump's policies are actually making prices higher, not lower, that clock is working against him. Stay focused on stories like this. Pay attention when Trump's own supporters express disappointment. Notice when his policies produce the opposite of their stated goals. Watch for more evidence that his political grip is weakening, because this is how political realignments happen. Not all at once, but gradually, as supporters slowly realize they've been lied to and the emperor has no clothes. The Redneck Christmas Parade in Louisiana just gave us a preview of Trump's political future. Diminished, criticized even by supporters, unable to deliver on promises, and facing demands for accountability that he can't escape. And China's record trade surplus gave us the economic verdict. Trump's policies failed. They helped America's adversary while hurting American consumers. That's the reality, no matter how much Trump tries to spin it as winning. And slowly but surely, people are figuring that out.